Vivek Ramaswamy went on the Flagrant podcast and had a very, very, very interesting conversation. And the concept of the deep state came up. And he was pressed, rightfully so, about kind of playing into some of the conspiratorial stuff, right? And the way he explained it on here was brilliant, like amazing, that debunked all of the ideas of both sides.
But is she deep state?
She's a product of the deep state.
She's product of deep state. Biden is also product of deep state.
I would say so.
So essentially,
puppets of the deep state,
okay, that's a great way to look at it, because it feels as if for the average.
So they're talking about the deep state. I mean, we hear this term thrown away all the time, right? The interesting thing he does, Schultz does a good job of pinning him down. What do you mean by the deep state? So let's see.
Person that Biden is being run, right?
He is being run.
He's being run. That's what the average person, but we don't know what really that means. Who runs him? Do you have names of run him?
It's just, it comes back to this, man. It's the machine. You could
what's the machine?
You could pick your Susan Rices or the Hillary Clintons or the Barack Obamas, but it doesn't matter.
But
it's
currently,
like,
do we know who's doing
It's like
it?
the San Antonio Spurs, right? It doesn't matter
But I know
who's
who
actually
runs
playing.
that. Popovich runs that.
But
who's the Popovich?
Yeah, so I think imagine if Popovich steps out in the middle of a game and the whole thing just keeps running as its own machine.
Becky Hammond steps in. I know the coaching staff. I don't even know if she's not there anymore. But what I'm saying
it doesn't
is,
matter who it is, and the machine still runs.
I'm aware it
So
runs.
it is. Here's how it works. Here's how it works.
There we go. And this is not to go, I want to catch you. I don't think that you're using
I don't take it that
rhetoric.
way.
I'm genuinely trying to understand a phrase that I feel like I've used without really knowing.
So at a certain point, the bureaucracy becomes its own creation. That's what it is.
Okay, are you tracking?
Yeah.
So they go into deep state talk.
Yeah.
Now, deep state's you the cabal, the Illuminati, all this stuff.
But it's also like the lifetime. It's supposed to be like the
Yes.
lifetime politicians.
Yes.
The CIAs that have been there for 30 years.
Yes.
That have been through
Yes.
multiple
Yes.
presidents.
Yes, but he does a great job in really pinning down what he means and who he's talking about. That again, I think kind of sets both sides up to not like to disagree with him. But I actually agree with what he lays out.
So if you want to take, for example, the FBI.
Can I say one thing about this and how it helps me understand?
Sure.
So in Hollywood, before I did really anything in entertainment, and I was on the outside of it, I thought that there was these like organized meetings amongst people in Hollywood. They're like, here's the agenda. We're going to push. We're going to push. We're going to push into. What I learned is that it's people that are trying to keep their job.
Yeah.
And by trying to keep their job, they're doing the things that they believe will be rewarded, or very least they won't be punished.
Yes.
So is this what you mean by?
So there's a version of that. I mean, I think that a lot of what most people refer to as conspiracy theories, the ones that certainly are true, are really just an amalgam of collective incentives that are hiding in plain sight. That's
that we think
Collective incentives people are hiding behind.
That's fine.
there's these nefarious individuals that are holding.
right.
the puppet
There
strings.
is no smoke
Doesn't
filled
even
room.
have to be. Yes.
You're missing if you're fixated on where.
So he said there's no smoke-filled room. Now, people are going to dismiss everything he's saying here and say, well, he's a plant and he's a this and he's a that, ignoring that he used 30
The
million.
Hindu guy would say that.
Right. Ignoring that he used $30 million of his own money. They said he fluctuates between a billionaire by the day based on how the market is doing.
Really?
This dude is not.
I didn't know he was caking like that.
Yeah, he's not controlled by anybody. He's not owned by anybody. He's independently wealthy. If there's someone that I would trust on this, it would be someone in his position that has that degree of net worth, who was able to throw his own money at this thing, and you know what I mean. And I'm gonna hear them out.
There's the smoke-filled room. You're missing the point. Right. And so I think that, like, this idea of that you're not supposed to utter, the great replacement theory or whatever. This idea that there's an intentional plot to supplant the native white stock of the U.S. for a bunch of people crossing the southern border to permanently secure electoral outcomes to the contrary. That's conspiracy theory. But if you take great replacement theory out of it, you take the idea of somebody concocting this in a smoke-filled room out of it, and then you just look at the last 20 years of policy. Much of one of the two political parties in the U.S., as recently as about a decade ago, said, well, immigration, legal or not, is going to be a key to securing lasting electoral majorities. And so that's why we should tend to favor this. Including even in the context of that was, you can't even remember the context, was convincing a kind of Bernie-esque minority view that was sort of skeptical of competition for domestic workers to sort of, it was a carrot to say, no, I know that this might, like, in the short run against some of the things you stand for, but think about what it could open up in the long run if we have lasting electoral majorities. So it was earnest as a persuasion mechanism. That today, if uttered by people on the so-called other side, becomes a conspiracy theory, which is nothing more than just a statement of incentive hiding in plain sight. So it goes with the bureaucracy. And I want to say a word about the bureaucracy. I don't love the word deep state only because it implies that it's limited to the government. What I call it, people don't like it when I say this and they say it doesn't resonate with people, but the word that I use is it's the managerial class.
This is Jamie.
It's the managerial class. You know who ruins all organizations?
Middleman.
The middleman. The people, because you got the owners and the CEOs, and then you got the people actually executing, and oftentimes it's the people in the middle that are the most difficult to deal with in any organization.
Just enough power, just not enough oversight.
Yeah.
To kind of mess everything up.
That's right, upper management. And how many works did a whole video on this, basically alluding to oftentimes the most incompetent people get promoted to upper management as a buffer to keep on people and to like create these bizarre bureaucratic processes that are completely counterintuitive to anyone being happy.
Diamond part of the managerial class.
I think the people 2 to 3 layers below Jamie Dimon absolutely are, and I think in some sense Jamie Dimon is ish on it. So there's 3 classes of people. I talk about this in my first book, Woking, a little bit. I mean, you got the creators, right? The actual, could be a professor at a university as opposed to the associate dean of God knows what. Could be the entrepreneur proprietor who started the company as opposed to the vice president of human resources. Could be the elected president of the United States versus, you know, the class that sits underneath them. You've got the creators, you've got the constituents, customers, shareholders, voters. And then you've got the managerial class, who are the higher middle management bureaucracy designed to administer that which the creators have created with the intention of serving the constituents, but to make it scalable. Like that's the basic premise of it, I mean, in a corporate context or not. And I think we live in a moment right now where the balance of power between those 3 categories has vastly shifted towards
the upper
managerial class, the committee class, as we would call it, the permanent bureaucracy, or what we would call in government, the permanent state. I think it's true in every sphere of our lives right now. I think it's true in corporate America. I think it's true in universities. But it so happens, and I do think it's the mother of all bureaucracies, it is absolutely true in the government that the people who we elect have almost nothing to do with what actually impacts most people's everyday lives compared to the permanent machine that sits under it. And it's fundamentally agnostic to the political party who's on top, as long as they're going to keep the party going.
So he said it's agnostic to the people on top. It doesn't even matter who's on top because it's just going to keep the machine going.
Joe Biden's one version of that. Nikki Haley's another version of that.
So
either of which is a safe choice.
Deep state is essentially just bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And your mission as president would have been to eliminate,
dismantle,
would have been
75%
a jackhammer, just like a chainsaw.
And I'm just trying to help people who might be like, oh, this guy wants to abolish the Department of Education. What the is that? You're just trying to eliminate the bureaucracy from the Department of Education. Eliminate the bureaucracy from so many.
Despite like to his point, despite the party, the national debt still goes up. It's like all the things that generally are bad for the country.
Yep, both parties do.
Yeah, it doesn't stop because one party came in and like, oh, he's a good businessman. He's going to save our national debt. It's like, I don't know.
The FBI.
Because the bureaucracy itself is causing what? Is causing a separation between what the constituents want and what the executive.
The dissipation of accountability is what disappears.
So they know the managerial folks no longer have accountability to their constituents.
That's right.
And that is because there is this.
They don't even have constituents. That's the thing. They don't even have constituents. So I'll give it
just enough power, but not enough oversight.
That's right.
It's the CEO doesn't know their name because they're like a couple levels below them, but they're also not small enough to be featured on Undercover Boss.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Like the people on the ground floor that run the thing are the Undercover Boss folks, and then the people just below the CEO actually help run the whole business, and these people are just boop right there, just calling shots, vetoing things. CEO never finds out.
Anybody who's worked at a company with a couple hundred people knows that these are the most difficult and annoying people to deal with. Those of you guys, I think that is definitely a cabal, definitely Illuminati, definitely these people pulling the strings behind the scenes. I want you to ask yourself, like, one, what's more dangerous? A bunch of people in a smoky room behind the scenes pulling all the strings, or like let's just envision there's a dozen of those people, or a bunch of people who believe they're doing the right thing and what's best for society, and they're the ones making the mess, right? So you think of the World Economic Forum. They're attempting to drive policy. They're not in some smoky room. They're telling you what they want to do. They're out and open telling you exactly what they want to do and how they want to do it. And they're driving policy, a lot of the climate stuff. They believe they're helping people. And I think, I don't know if it's in this conversation or a different conversation, but a lot of those people, you know, they already have all the real estate. They don't want you to have private property rights because they already own property. They don't care about that, right? So I think this idea that there's some smoky room and a dozen people controlling everything, I think it's way too simplistic because it ignores that most people are evil and incompetent. Okay, and I never ascribe malicious intent to that which can be described with incompetence. Okay, so if someone can have malicious intent or they could just be incompetent and evil, I'm going to lean to incompetence and evil because evil people still have good intent. Dumb people, bad people, evil people still have dumb intent. And so what I like about Vivek here is that and you guys should look at the rest of them. They get into climate change again. The people who are messing things up are the people who actually think they're doing good. That's the mess in all of it. They think they're helping. You look at, here's a great example. We talked about this with Frank Turk. You look at some of the climate policy, and I'm not saying that climate change isn't real, and I'm not saying that climate change is not man-made. Okay, I don't know. I know it's real, and I lean towards it's probably influenced by people. But if you look at the policies in California, they want to ban all gas vehicles by the year 2030. Even if the United States got our carbon emission down to zero, we only output like 15% of the world's stuff, of the junk in the world. The majority of that is coming from China and India. So here you got people who think they're helping. We're going to eliminate our carbon footprint. We're going to be carbon neutral, all this kind of stuff. When they're not even understanding that it does not move the needle in the slightest if California gets rid of gas cars. And then it's like, at what expense? At what expense? So this is the type of bureaucracy that he's talking about. This is the type of stuff he's talking about. And it's not just a dozen guys in a cabal meeting. It's everywhere. It's at your organization. It's at the incompetence and the bureaucracy at the company you probably work for. It's in your local government. It's in upper government. Like it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's in Hollywood, right? What did Andrew Schultz say? I used to think there were certain people pressing the buttons on certain things. Now that he's done some movies and he's in Hollywood, he's saying, no. It's just people trying to preserve their jobs and do what is incentivized based on whatever's being passed down. A lot of these DEI things, right? So anyway, I thought that was really interesting. I've been saying this for years. It's really interesting to hear two people who are experts in the fields that they're in confirm a lot of what I've been saying for a long time. Because I've been saying this about the music industry. Because I've been in the music industry. I've been in the same studios. I've recorded music on the same boards and studios that Dre and Snoop and Kendrick Lamar have done music in. Some of the biggest songs you've heard, I've been in those studios. I've recorded songs in those same exact studios. Been around those people. I've met the executives at major labels, Universal, a whole bit. And you know what they're all driven by? Money. That's all it is at the end of the day. Whatever can sell the most or stream the most, that's all they care about. That's all they care about. And in our situation, we were Christians, unapologetically talking about Jesus. They met our pastor, the whole bit. All they cared about was, can you guys sell records? Can you guys move the needle? If you can, great. We'll open the door. We see according to the Bible that prayer is extremely important in terms of us being transformed from the inside out when we get aligned with God's will. For the Christians watching this channel, I want you guys to implement these spiritual disciplines in your day-to-day life. And the only way I've been able to do this consistently is through writing down my prayers in a prayer journal that does a few things. One, it allows me to reflect and come to God humbly and ask him to move on my behalf. And two, it allows me to document my prayers, which ultimately help me remember the very things that I was praying for and see the hand of God tangibly in my life when he answers them. So I would urge you, consider writing down your prayers. It could be in a blank notebook. It could even be on your phone. Or you could check out the one I personally designed and used from my own quiet time and spiritual discipline that I think will be a huge blessing. It's the exact structure and system that I've used for years to pray and be more consistent in my spiritual disciplines. You can pick yours up today by clicking the link in the pinned comment below. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.